We'll take 10 to 12 minutes on this today and have to pick this back up again next week. And really, the issue is about leadership. And there is a leadership gap. And when we call leadership, we're talking kingdom leadership. And kingdom leadership is servant leadership. There's a deficit in the community of faith of servant or kingdom leadership. And you say, well, what are you really talking about here? Based on this first passage in Luke chapter 18, we start at verse 9, and then we'll go over to Matthew chapter 20. Luke chapter 18, starting at verse 9, says, to some, notice this, who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everyone else. Then Jesus told this parable. He says, two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other one a tax collector. Or a crook, pretty much, basically. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector, like that thug sitting over there. I fast twice a week, give a tenth of all I give. Man, that sounds so great, so spiritual, so churchy. But the tax collector, or the one who knew he wasn't right, stood at a distance and would not even look up to heaven. Beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner, because I know I'm not right. He said, just have mercy. You notice what we're saying? That was a biblical prayer for somebody who wasn't even a Christian. Did you notice this? This is just an example of that. He wasn't even a Christian, but biblically, mercy is what is granted because God does have mercy. And he said, God, have mercy on me, and I'm not even one of your children. In verse 14, so I tell you that this man, rather than the other one, the one who said, God, have mercy on me, and said, went home justified or made right. Notice this now. He was made right before God. Now, you know what that also says? The other one was not. He was made right before God the same way for all those who exalt themselves will, notice it. That's why we say some things you don't have to concern yourself with. Some things you don't have to get yourself so caught up into. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled. They'll be humbled. So you don't have to pray for bad things to happen to people. Notice what they said. Everybody who exalts themselves will be humbled. Amen. Not a possibility. Amen. They will be humbled. And those who humble themselves will be exalted. Amen. But everybody who blows himself up for being how great, how good, how wonderful, how kind, and all the other things, God say, oh, I got you on my list. Oh, you're on my takedown list. I'm going to take you down. So in other words, just as sure as there's night and day and the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, they will be humble. And then on the other hand, God said, I know how to build people up. I know how to put them in place. But get this now. Don't ever ask God to exalt you. Amen. Because when it's right, he'll do it. Because get this now, this stuff is earned. Earned not according to our righteousness, but earned based upon our doing what he said. God elevates based upon our response to doing what he says. In other words, being faithful at this space gives God the go-ahead to give you more to operate in. More to operate in. And it's not because you ask. It's just because you serve. Then in Matthew chapter 20, starting at verse 25. verse 25 through 28. Jesus called his disciples and said, now you all know this, that the princes and the Gentiles exercise dominion or authority over them. In other words, they're abusive. And they that are great exercise authority upon them. In other words, they forcing it down. They're forcing it down is what he's saying. But verse 26 says that this is not how it's supposed to be with you who know me. But whosoever will be great among you, let them be your servant. And whoever will be chief among you, let them be your minister. Now notice verse 20, even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, or to be served, but instead to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. Okay, now what does that look like on a practical basis? Kingdom leadership looks like this. Kingdom leadership or servant leadership says that that person is willing to put the interests of others that they are connected to above themselves. They make it their business to look out for what's best for other people, even if it's at their own expense. Kingdom leadership, servant leadership. What you'll find that they're doing, they're always trying to blow other people up. They're never trying to blow themselves up. They're always looking for ways to undergird where other people are, to build them, to make them better than they were. In other words, the people get excited about servant leaders because being around a servant leader, you're given an opportunity to be at your best. Not to feel threatened or intimidated or feel as though I can't make a mistake. But what it really is supposed to be is that you get the opportunity to be at your best. Well, so let me qualify those two things because there's a balance there. There's a balance there from this perspective. A servant leader has super high expectation because they see some things in you oftentimes you don't even see in yourself. What you find them doing is pushing it in order that you can be at your best. Notice what Jesus did. He took all of his disciples and he kept putting them in unique situations that they could thrive based upon their makeup. That's the reason why out of the 12, John was the one who was the closest to him because of his makeup, and he kept pushing him. John would not have been the right person on the day of Pentecost. He needed loud-mouthed, hot-headed, hot-tempered Peter to face a hostile crowd. You follow this? Are you following this? On the day of Pentecost, it was Peter who stood because he was the thug in the group. I mean, okay, he was the one who would not be intimidated, who pulled out a sword in a crowd when they came for Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And so he said, no, Peter's the one who needs to stand before the people. John is gentle and kind. So based on his makeup, he pushed him to thrive in order to be able to do that, because he knows that where we are, that servant leader is pushing so that they begin to be at their best. And that's what he says, is to serve where other people are. And they're not asking you to do their own bidding. Wow. You can see where a leadership deficit is without me even telling you. They're not to do your own bidding. Mm-hmm. They're not to walk back statements that are true in order to make them false. Mm-hmm. This because of the fact that what the servant leader does, it says, where are you now? And this is not where you stay. Being around servant leaders will stretch you because they're always going somewhere. They're always thriving. They're always being given the opportunity. Let me give you this. I'll give you a classic example, and we'll stop here for today. Someone gave my name to another person with TD Ameritrade. TD Ameritrade, as of the next few days, and it will hit the news, will have been merged with Charles Schwab. So I've got this information before it even hits the news. So, well, anyway, it just hit the news, right? So, anyway, here's the deal. So how do these things go together? Well, it was about job opportunities for people. And somebody gave my name to the diversity individual who is not stationed in St. Louis. They're stationed in Charlotte. Are you following it? To say anybody whose name you give who's interested has this opportunity. We'd never met each other. But this person said they can call me directly if they have some concern. And she said for 3 years we've been working on trying to get them to hire people, especially people of color. So it took 3 years to get to this place, and now they're doing it. So then I fast forward in engaging this person. What has happened, it turned from my just helping to point other people to just having a conversation, and her father was ill. You notice how this is shifting? Now her father is ill. So it shifted from my just being this person now to walk with her through this journey. And now her father passes. And I've been the person who's been walking alongside of her, although she's connected to a church. But it's been through the fact that we have only seen pictures of each other. But this relationship has developed to walk alongside, and now they're going to have a memorial service for Dad on this upcoming Saturday, and she wants me to facilitate most of it.
Amazing.
Are you hearing it? Mm-hmm. Just serving, leading, helping. Now, so in other words, I'm not trying to bring it to me, but to give you an example of what God does, because what he knows is that's the space I live in.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
That's the space I live in. And so what this is doing for her, she's trying to explain. She said, I can't even explain. She said, God knew I needed somebody, and I didn't even ask him, and you show up, and I don't even know how to explain how you're here and why I have you in my life like this. He said, but all I know is God had to have done it because the pressure that was on me is no longer there. And this person is taking some time off under my advisement who had never taken time off in 5 years. Because God moves, and he does, and without looking for something in return. Are you following this? Her being in corporate America, I could have sent her an invoice and say, this is EAP stuff. And she knows it. Could have sent her an invoice and say, you know what this is going to cost you. Da, 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 da. She could not have said a word. Because her boss was glad when he found out that she was taken off, because they had been trying to get her to do it and she never did it. And it was through this relationship that this person called in and said, I'm taking the next 8 days off. And her 14-year-old, who had never had 2 consecutive weekends with her, finally they've had a chance to spend that time.
Praise the Lord.
Now you're talking about where does all of this go? It said, God's looking for servants at all costs without looking for a payoff. Now I guess you have to ask yourself, where are you right now? Are you looking for God to do something for you to make you feel better? Or to make it better for you? Or are you seeking more opportunities to serve? Because really that's what this is all about. We have stopped right here. We'll pick up the rest of this next week. So our time is up.
Thank you for yours.
Thank you for yours.